Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge, where truth matters. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. That's local to North Alabama. You can also find us on Abundance Television, syndicated, where we are on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And also the podcast comes up on November 1, and I can hardly wait. You can see the website right there. And so you can check that out. They've got a few things up there, but we're not ready to broadcast it there yet. Also, if you have any ideas about shows, I love research. So if you have some ideas, just go ahead and send an email. And some of you have been doing that. It's been a lot about gardening and what's going on in the Middle East and those kinds of things. So we're getting all that stuff out there ready for you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I have Barry and Kathi Holcomb, friends of ours from the big state of Mississippi.
Yes. We're barely in Mississippi, just by a few miles. We're on the state line of Alabama and Mississippi.
You're kind of at the border. And you guys are with Home to Heart Ministry, and we're so glad to be with you today. You are a minister, and so there's a big thing going on at our church. We actually had Pastor Appreciation Sunday, this past Sunday, and so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We started pastoring in 1992. So I've been pastor of a number of churches. We were talking before the show started about Gadsden. We were actually the very first church that I was pastor of was in Gadsden, Alabama. They're at North Gadsden Baptist Church. And so, yes, since 92. So it's been, 31 years of ministry. Minus a few years where we're not in full-time ministry, still in ministry. But yes, and I commend you. Just your church is doing the right thing to honor your pastor. The scripture is very clear about those who lead the church and those who pastor. Let me share a couple of verses, maybe Hebrews 13:7. Remember those who led you, who spoke the word of God to you, and consider the result of their conduct. Imitate their faith. And then down in verse 17, obey your leaders. And that's one that a lot of church members balk at, that they don't think of having to obey the leaders in the church. So they call a pastor, he's more like a hired hand. So they don't see him as someone to follow to the point of obedience. But the scripture says, obey your leaders, submit to them, for they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account. Let them do this with joy and not grief, for this would be unprofitable for you. And so it's amazing how many churches conduct their life in the body in an unprofitable way because they don't have a good relationship with their pastor. And one of the things that you can do to build that relationship is to follow suit with what James Dobson actually started in 1994. Focus on the Family started Pastor Appreciation Month. And it's just an opportunity. It's a good opportunity to encourage this man of God and his family who have come alongside you to lead you for a season, however short or however long. And we've been a part of many churches who never batted an eye in October. They just went right past it. But our current church, and I'm pastor at Calvary Baptist in Belmont, Mississippi, they've been very gracious and very kind to recognize that day, at least in some way, since we started here. And so it's a great encouragement. I would commend it to every church. It will do wonders for your pastor and for your church because you'll lift up the man who leads you.
And you made a key point too, the pastor and his family, because the wife and your wife, especially Kathi, is, I don't know, you always make me think of the last chapter of Proverbs, that lady. And that's extremely important to have somebody because in many ways, she's the guide.
It's as hard to be a pastor's wife, I think, and I'm speaking for her. I think it's as hard, if not harder, to be the pastor's wife than it is to be the pastor. And she carries burdens that no one ever sees. And sometimes, they don't even feel allowed to share those. And sometimes there are not a lot of people to share them with. We're blessed here. We've been discipling young adults. So we've built a lot of relationships with our young families in the church. And so Kathi has several groups of women that she leads, and they look up to her as a spiritual mom. And I think that makes a difference too in the body when it's seen as the pastor and his wife. She's not the pastor, but she is as close to him as anyone will ever be besides the Lord. And so it is indeed a team effort in leading that congregation.
Let's talk a little bit about the team of a church. I know one of the most successful churches I ever went to, and the Cowboy churches are this way as well. But when I was a kid growing up, we went to Antioch Baptist Church, which was in Albertville, Alabama. Raymond Cook was the pastor. And so we went there on and off between times my dad would pastor churches. And what I noticed is he had deacons, and the deacons were almost like football. Okay. So the pastor he was running the ball down the road, but it's almost like the deacons were blockers, and they took a lot of load off of him. Mm-hmm. And what do you think about that? I mean, you have the folks in the congregation who are always going to bat for if this is the right kind of church, going to bat for the pastor, but those deacons really went to bat for him. Well, they would calm things down before it got to him.
That's how it should be, Donna. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of churches, and I mean, we're Southern Baptists by choice. My experience in Southern Baptist churches with deacons has been varied. Some churches, the deacons are very supportive. I have a great group of supportive deacons here at Calvary Baptist. These men view their role, their number one role is to guard the unity that God has given the church. And unity already exists in the body because it's the body of Christ, but we're called to guard the unity. So Paul in Ephesians says, guard the unity of spirit and in the bond of peace. So some deacons do that, but some don't. Some deacons are really a challenge to work with. And I've had both. I've had good deacons. I've had deacons who are not blocking for the pastor. They're blocking him. And and that's another story altogether. But you're exactly right. It's a very good analogy for deacons who are conscientious about keeping the peace in the congregation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And pastor's wife again. And also the deacons' wives. They're crucial too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And here, I would consider them my friends. A lot of times you hear while you're in the ministry, I've heard this said, you can't really be friends with anyone in the congregation. That guard yourself from being friends, because if you share, deep personal things, then they can use it against you, and probably that's true to a certain degree. I'm not denying that might be the case. But I have found in our latter years of ministry that I'm just going to be who I am. And I want people to see my weaknesses, my warts, the real me, because, and I've said this before, Donna, I think even on one of your shows, before in a church where we, struggled a little bit, I gave 150%. Mm-hmm. And it still wasn't good enough. And I say that just because I know the Lord, he does teach us that our efforts are not going to be good enough. We're not going to win the favor of everyone. Not everybody's going to love us. I mean, not everybody loved Jesus, and he was perfect. So, but having gone through that and having said that, I am at a point in my life now where I am who I am. And I make mistakes. I can be, I can walk in the flesh sometimes. I'm not always in the spirit. And I've just tried to be just real transparent before the people in the church. And the deacons' wives here at Calvary Baptist Church, I really do count as friends. I can go to probably any one of them and share my heart. And it is a blessing. Now, not every pastor and wife have that. But it's been something that the Lord has kind of taught us, just be who we are, be transparent, be real. We heard something, I'll just say this real quick. We heard something, maybe it was a book that we were reading at the time, where we are to view the church, the members of the church, as saints and not as sinners. Now, that didn't mean they don't sin, but it just means when I look at them, I'm going to see them as God sees them through the blood of Jesus. They are saints who still struggle, with the flesh. And so if you have that perspective, it kind of enables you to give a little bit more grace to those who are also beset with weaknesses and struggles.
And, pastors and wives have to build a relationship with multiple people in the congregation, but the foundational relationship is the pastor, the deacons, the pastor's wife, the deacons' wives. And it takes some intentionality. You have to work on that. And we've really tried to do that here. Kathi has a group text for the deacons' wives. They're some of the first people she reaches out to for prayer requests. She hears from them about prayer requests. So it's been a very supportive group. And one of the reasons I think it doesn't exist for some churches is that the average tenure in Southern Baptist churches for pastors is quite low. I think it's risen some in past years, but it used to be as low as 2 or 3 years. And then you would move to another church thinking the grass is greener, or the trouble is too much, the heat has gotten too high. Certainly it'll be better somewhere else. And that's just never true. And sometimes it's too hot. Sometimes you have to move on. But we're closing out our 5th year here at Calvary Baptist. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. We came here in January of 2019, and 5 years has gone by like light speed. And so we're delighted with where we are. It's a good feeling to be able to say after 5 years, I'm glad to be here. I'm not looking to go somewhere else. I'm not looking to climb a ladder. I'm not looking for a bigger church, a better church. I'm looking to work to see God do what he wants to in this church.
Right there where you need.
With your leaders. People see that. So,
sometimes there can be issues in churches, and I think a lot of it is just plain ignorance, because a lot of folks, maybe they've never been to a church. I know we grew up in church, and you guys did too, but a lot of folks didn't. They don't know how to act. And sometimes I just think, is there any books? Are there any books out there available where people just kind of like a textbook, where people, other than hearing it from the pulpit, that people just kind of get a grasp on, what is the set of the church? What is the hierarchy? If you want to call it that, I don't know, but the behavior of church and, how kids should act in church.
I can't think of one single book right now. Maybe I can give that some thought and do a little search, do a little research like you talked about, and see. There's some books that pastors certainly need to read so they can understand, their congregation better. James Draper edited a good book a while back called "Don't Quit Before You Start." A lot of good stories about churches and how they function and your role and finishing well. We're reading a book right now about life in the church called A Praying Church. That's been very helpful. Sadly, there are a number of books that pastors need to read that help them understand the negatives in church. There's a book called Antagonists in the Church that every pastor needs to read, so they'll understand those negative personalities that you're inevitably going to have to deal with at some point. So there's a lot out there, but maybe there is. I'll try to find a good book and send it your way that might deal with maybe from a parishioner's point of view, how they can understand better the role and function of the body.
And I think I'm thinking football today, analogies, but I'm also thinking people who could cause trouble in church. To me, they're considered the armchair quarterbacks. They can tell the football player, they can tell the quarterback how he should have run the ball, but until you are out there actually running it, it's a different story.
Sure.
It's
we've recently read a book called Flickering.
This is how it is.
Flickering Lights, I think, by Richard Blackaby. It's a beautiful book on what the church is about and how to view it. I think any, believer should read that. Any pastor and wife should read that. It has been very profound. I think they wrote it in 2015. And it just talks about Jesus as the risen Christ who is head of his church. And I think that's really kind of where we miss this. A lot of times we view the church as in a secular mentality, the CEO, the pastors, the CEO of the church and the deacons, are the board, and they make those decisions to chastise the pastor or get rid of the pastor because they're not the production of the church isn't happening. They're not, so it's kind of this secular mindset. And I think that we've really got to get back to looking at it from a biblical perspective of what the church is, which is the living body of Christ, who the head is Christ and not the pastor. The pastor is the under shepherd. And so that means the pastor is not some dictator who comes in and tells everybody what to do, but neither are the deacons. That they are literally, in the first initial meaning of the word, they were servants. They crawled through the dirt, basically, and served the community or served the other members. And so I think just having a biblical understanding of how the church functions would help people so much in how to view even the pastor as he leads. He's not there to dictate. And if you have a dictator, there's something wrong, and it needs to be, looked at and dealt with in grace and much prayer and, in love. And I'm just afraid that sometimes, sometimes deacons are looking at the bottom line. And they don't do it correctly. We were not treated correctly from a church. It was dealt with a lot of angst and a lot of anger, and which did not please the Lord. We're grateful that God brought us through and has taught us even through that difficult time. We've shared on this show many times about our experience, but we've just learned a different way to view the church and to view the people. And I do think just reading the Bible will give you a great example of what that is, to look like.
Well, we have, and I'm not saying God changes. God doesn't. I mean, God's still the same as he was, but culture changes. And I'll give you an idea of where I'm going to on this. But years ago, Phil and I worked with a youth at church we went to. It was bad enough then. We had a few kids that their families had never been to church ever. And so these kids really did not know what church was. They didn't know how to act. We had to educate these kids that you don't talk, in church while the service is going on. The things that we think are basic, because we grew up in church and you did too. But now we have another generation. So it's like 2 or 3 generations of people who they didn't go to church. Their grandparents didn't go to church. And so how are you handling that? Or do you guys have any circumstances where something just happens? It's not that they mean anything about it. It's just plain ignorance. They do not know what church is.
Well, I mean, as far as parents teaching their children, that ought to be a given, but apparently it's not. We're seeing generation after generation that is growing up with a me first mentality. My kid can do no wrong. There are no rules. And certainly, every pastor's dealt with, you've said something in church saying children need to quiet down. And, there have been times where I've opened my mouth and wish I hadn't, and actually upset people and made them mad about that. When you would think that just ought to be one of the basics. So I'm not sure what the answer is to that, because you have such a touchy generation of young adults as parents now, where not only can you not correct their children, but you can't correct them. And so, God's going to have to sort that out. I just think it comes through preach the word, teach the standards, set the example, and just let God deal with that. It's very difficult in a public setting to call someone down and say, hey, you need to do this or that differently with your kids. And there's an element of the church that wish every pastor would say, hey, kids, settle down, stop talking, parents, reel them in. That just doesn't help you at all. So I don't know. It's a generational thing, though. And I think you've probably seen that, where generation after generation seems to get a little bit more worse and more self-centered, self-focused. And it really, truly, if parents are teaching kids to honor others more than you honor yourself, to treat others, go back to the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. So there's some basics I think we've just lost as society has changed. And there's probably more to say on that.
Well, it's not only pastors of churches, but school teachers. I have relatives who are retired school teachers, and they say over and over again they would not teach school now.
I don't know how they do it.
It's tough. We've got some good teachers out there, and they just really don't have the support. They don't have the support of the school system.
Right.
Well, we have educators in our church, Donna, who tell us horror stories about, kids like today, they have tablets in the school they do work on. And so those things are tracked. So it's unbelievable the sites that kids are searching and going to, that they have to call them in the office and say, now you looked at this, or you posted these dirty words. Kids that absolutely lose their cool, and parents don't support the teachers. It's a difficult setting. We have a granddaughter who will be 4 in January. And we're just praying every day for her education, for her setting in school, to be something that is profitable, that she learns from, that teaches her right from wrong. So it's a challenge.
In most cases, it's not the problem with the teacher. It's because the teacher has to put so much effort and so much attention to the ones who want to be trouble.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, homeschool kids are the smartest kids you'll ever meet. I mean, I can be in a room full of 1,000 kids. I'll point the ones that are homeschooled.
They act differently in general, and I think sometimes society now would look at kids who are homeschooled and think they're backward or maybe a little bit slow developmentally, but really they're more probably where they should be. So you have kids that are in a public setting, they're exposed to anything and everything, and they seem very worldly and knowledgeable, and that's not necessarily a very good thing. Kids need to be aware, but kids don't need to know certain things, and they're just privy to all kinds of information. And so we look at these kids who are homeschooled, whose parents are training them up in a very traditional way. And some people look at them and think, well, you're slow, you're backwards. But actually, they're where they really should be as far as development and maturity and what they know.
Well, Phil has a sister who lives in Mississippi, by the way, close to Saltillo, Mississippi.
Yeah, we're not far from there, between here and Tupelo. She homeschooled them. And I remember back in the 80s and the 90s when she first got started. And I even told Phil, I said, my goodness, those kids are not going to be sociable. It's going to be terrible. They're the most sociable kids you'll ever meet. There are programs out there now where homeschoolers meet with other homeschoolers. They even have football teams out there now. And these kids were well accepted into college. Yeah.
I mean, way above.
Yes.
We have a nephew who was homeschooled, and actually 3 of our nephews homeschooled. All of them have good jobs. One of them is an aerospace engineer who graduated with honors from Auburn University in aerospace engineering. He's working for a company up in Maryland.
Yeah,
so he's up on the Eastern Seaboard now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to be getting ready for a commercial break. We still got a little time. We've got a little bit under 4 minutes left before we go into a commercial break. And I know you had some things you wanted to talk about as well.
Well, I do. I mean, things that go along kind of with Pastor Appreciation Month. There are just certain things, and maybe this will kind of take up a little time. First of all, let me give you a couple of books. You ask about books. Anything by Tom Rainer, and he writes extensively on the church. He's a Southern Baptist author. He's a researcher. He's got a book called Autopsy of a Deceased Church, and that would give you some things that you don't want to do, some things that you want to change. He's got a book called Simple Church that's very helpful. But anything you can find, Tom Rainer, he has a book called Anatomy of a Revived Church. So there's a lot of things out there that will help churches move forward out of bad situations, or maybe assess what's caused them to get in a bad situation to begin with. So those are some good books. I mean, I just thought Tom Rainer, anything Tom Rainer has written would be helpful for church members and pastors alike. And so, yes, I do have some other things. I don't know how much of that 4 minutes I just burned up, but I found something helpful on Facebook. There are some good things on social media. A guy named Brandon Crossier put out things to know about your pastor. And so maybe we can hit on those for a minute here. And when we come back from the break, kind of touch on some of those things. The first one is that people need to know that your pastor loves God and he loves you. So it's just something to be mindful of. And pastors need to be very careful that they love their church well, that they love the congregation well, that they sense that. So there's not an opportunity. Some pastors always are scolding from the pulpit, and there's always a beat down. And look, you can preach the word without that. God's word can convict people of wrong and sin. We just have to preach it. So, just to be mindful that you have a man who has answered a call. He's brought his family into a vocation that's difficult. It's a glass house. Just be mindful. He loves God and he does love you. And if you'll understand this man who loves you is there to serve you, I think things will go a lot better for you and him.
I think so too. My son's in the ministry. And I wanted to make sure he knew what he was getting himself into. Absolutely. And so we talked for a really long time about it. As a matter of fact, he said, "What do you want me to do? Sell drugs, Mom? Would you be happy if I did that?" I said, "No." I said, "No, not that. I just want you to know, that you, like you said, living in a glass house is what you're going to be. And people need to appreciate that. They don't have a clue. That's what the pastor and his wife and family go through." Let's go into a commercial break, and we shall return in just a couple of minutes. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
My Towels solved a problem that we've all had with towels. You go into the stores and they feel lotiony and soft, but then you get them home and they wind dry you. That's why I made My Towels. They actually work, they're soft, and they absorb. And now I'm excited to announce 2 brand new lines of My Towels. What makes them the best towels ever is they're now made with 100% long staple Shapir cotton. This is a combed ring spun cotton that makes My Towels even softer and more absorbent than ever. And now you get a 6-piece set for an amazing introductory sale price as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number your promo code to get My Towels for only $29.98. Or you can get my designer premium line for just $20 more. Either way, you save 50% now on all My Towels. They actually work. What a concept. This offer won't last long, so please order now.
mypillow.com.
At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdylawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. We are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge, where truth actually matters. So we're here to talk to you today with Home to Heart Ministries. But before we get started, I wanted to thank a couple of new sponsors we have. Applebee's came back, and they went and stayed down for a little while. They decided to come back. We appreciate that. And then also the Gadsden Mall. Wow, as I'm speaking it there, you'll see the Gadsden Mall located in Gadsden, Alabama. And so we will start having some live shows out there as well. So we appreciate them, the confidence they placed in us for their advertising needs. Absolutely. I have Barry and Kathi Holcomb with me right now. They're with Home to Heart Ministry. And oh, by the way, what is the website? How can folks find out more about you guys?
HomeToHeartMinistry.com.
And that's a good one. And also, you guys are on Facebook.
We are. Home to Heart Ministry is on Facebook. You can search for Barry Holcomb. I'm on Facebook. Kathy's on Facebook. Email address is bholcomb78@gmail.com. Kathy's is ktbarker1965@gmail.com. We don't even mind giving out cell phone numbers if people want to text us. You can text at 256-460-8615 or 256-460-9253, and those will come directly to us. We're open to hearing from people, here to help, here to serve. Not just Calvary at Belmont, but anyone we can help, especially pastors. We have a heart for pastors and wives, especially those who have been hurt, who have baggage. And every pastor has gone through something, but some are going through more than others. I got a call just the other day from a pastor who is hurting, whose congregation is divided, and he's at the center of it. And he just needs someone to reach out to. And so I get calls from these guys who say, just let me tell you my story. And that's one of the things I do best, to just listen to these guys and then pray with them. So a heart for pastors. Before we get too much further, let me just say this. I know we could talk a long time, but let me just say a word about Israel if I can, because that's on my heart right now. We all know what's going on in Israel. And let me just remind everyone, biblically, I have a biblical worldview, so I'm going to view this from the biblical stance. That land there is not called Palestine. It is Israel. It's the land God promised to his people. It is the same today as it was when Joshua led the people across the Jordan River and they went into Canaan and took the land. It's the same land that Abraham went to, that Jacob sojourned in Canaan. And Zechariah 2:8 says, if you touch Israel, you touch the apple of his eye. And so it's devastating to see this. I would just reiterate, this is my biblical worldview. And listen, God loves those people. Sadly, Palestinians and Israelites, many of them are not prepared to step into eternity. And that's what's happening at a high rate, is people are dying there. But the Israelites are victims in this. The terrorists are Hamas and Hezbollah and others who have gone and attacked and touched his people, touched the apple of his eye. And so I would just urge you, pray for Israel, pray for the peace of Israel. We know that in the end, and Revelation teaches this, it's taught thoroughly through Isaiah, most of the prophets, that nations are going to gather against Israel. We're seeing that now. And I think this is going to develop into more of a regional war instead of just a terrorist war. I think it's going to go further than we wish it would go. But that is just biblical prophecy. But pray for Israel. Pray for these people. These are God's people. They're still his beloved nation, his chosen people. And there will be a remnant of them who will rise up out of the tribulation that will constitute the nation of Israel, the people of God, who will turn to Christ. And we ought to be praying that all of them would see Jesus as their Messiah.
There are issues, though, within the country of the United States, little pockets of people, and most of these are at colleges, where they're actually on the Palestinian side.
Well,
and that breaks my heart.
Yes. I mean, Harvard students rising up and calling out support for Palestinian terrorists like Hamas or Hezbollah. And there is a move right now, and I don't know why our leaders in this country can't get this right, but I think that we should be deporting any Palestinian national who is supportive of these terror groups. They don't have a place in this country. If they're supportive and voicing that, and they're nationals of that region, then send them home.
Well, there's some issues that are just plain old common sense. If you're having issues like that and people are coming across our border and it's just men and they look military-ish and they're not bringing their kids and their wives in, that needs to be investigated.
Well, we're having Iranian, Iraqi, Yemeni, you name it, Syrian, from every region over there in the Middle East where the terrorists are active. We're seeing them cross our southern border. There's no telling how many. There could be as many as 10,000 or more terrorists in our country who've crossed through our southern border. It's a shame and a travesty. That's another subject. But more than anything, we just need to pray for the nation of Israel, because they are the apple of his eye, and we don't need to forget that.
Something I was going to add to that, I didn't realize until all this started that, especially in the colleges right now, I mean, they are teaching something that is not true. So I saw something on Facebook or YouTube, maybe, a gentleman talking to a Jewish lady who was a historian. And he told her, he said, I thought, I was raised to believe, and this was the information I was given most of my life, that Israel was just given the land after the Holocaust, because the United States of America was trying to appease them for the sin against them through the Holocaust. So they gave them land, in Israel, but it really belonged to the Palestinians. And so I think what is happening is that most people are not educating themselves about really what happened in history.
Mm-hmm.
The Romans were the ones that called called it Palestine, and it was a derisive word that they were using against the people. And so, I mean, I just think, educate yourself. These are students in a higher learning, a setting of higher learning, but they're just believing their professors without checking it out themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some miscommunication, ignorance about this whole background. Most of us are not scholars on this conflict that's been going on for decades. I mean, really, thousands of years, really. And we need to educate ourselves. And maybe this is a way to be educated, to look into this and see why is this conflict such that it is.
Well, we can't be paranoid about all information that goes out, but we can be smart enough to do some research.
Absolutely.
And not just listening to everything you hear on the news and things that are out there. I mean, I love research. That's why I mentioned before we go on the show every single day, if you would like for me to do some research for you, I love research. Mm-hmm. So hand it to me. Send ideas. Send an email to Donna@donnasedge.com. I'll be glad to do some research for you.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. We had talked about this also before the show, and I wanted to make sure we spoke on behalf of Israel.
Thank you for doing that.
But, back to some things that people need to know about their pastor. The number two thing, let me just mention this, and this is just crucial. He is a painfully limited human being. Your pastor is limited. He is human. And so for people in their view of pastors, they just need to be realistic. He ought to be up on a pedestal to a degree, just out of honor and respect, but don't expect him to be perfect. And then I would say to pastors and their wives, be transparent. Let people see your weaknesses. Let them see your faults, your failures. I tell a story sometimes when I'm preaching about, I lost my cool once. We were on the way to a football game, leaving from Russellville, going over to Huntsville for a football game. Nathan was playing football senior year, and we stopped at a little place to get some chicken tenders, and I got a huge iced tea, and the lid was loose on it. So when I got to moving in the car, I picked it up, and I think I spilled a 32-ounce tea right in my lap. It was cold, and it had about that much left in it. So I pulled over on the side of the road, and I got out of my car, and that cup, I spiked it like it was a football. I just threw a temper tantrum right there on the side of the road. And when I told that story for the first time, people came up and said, thanks for just being real enough to say.
Because we do that.
So just be realistic. I am so faulted and flawed. I know my weaknesses. So he's painfully limited in his humanity, just like everyone else. So
just like we are.
Yes. And then the third one goes together with that. And this list kind of indicates that pastors have some baggage. The third thing I would say is that your pastor has a pretty low view of his performance. I think most pastors look at how they perform and they are hard on themselves. People don't realize that. But I mean, I'm hard on myself about how I preach. I'm hard on myself about my preparation. If I haven't done enough, I feel like I haven't met the mark in my own eyes. So just know they're pretty hard on themselves. That means take a break from being hard on him. He's hard enough on himself, so
probably more so than they are.
Right. So the takeaway from that, as far as people are concerned, is look, just be kind. I mean, that's just a general rule for the world. The world is lacking in kindness, and people don't realize that pastors need encouragement in order to balance the way they look at themselves. I preached a message a while back about packing your kids' bags, and it was a Mother's Day message. And I really don't preach like this, but I had a lot of props. I had a big suitcase on the stage, and then I had a chest, like a little cedar chest, and had a number of things, and it represented things that you're putting into your child's life, how you're packing their bags. And I thought it was a great message, and I had a lot of positive feedback. But when I did the benediction, I walked down the aisle, and the first person I ran into said, "You really missed the mark there." It was not kind, because I didn't talk enough about spanking when I talked about disciplining children. And I talked about spanking, but I also mentioned putting them in a timeout. And, there are just sometimes where people are not going to be pleased, but you can always be kind. And there's going to be those assorted few that are not, but be kind. So he's limited. He has a low view of his own performance. Number 4, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but he wishes he were a better preacher. And I think I'm a better preacher now than I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But it's disheartening when you look out there and you see people that are doing this. They're not small. So be awake. Just come ready to listen. Take notes. Let this man of God know, who's prepared to preach to you, poured his soul into hours of preparation. Be alert. Be aware. Show some appreciation that he has studied and that he's preaching to you a message that he got from God. So that's
and I wanted to bring out another point. This is being raised in a minister's home. While these folks are watching TV every night, watching American Idol and whatever, you're studying. I mean, you actually have a place where you study often. I mean,
I do most of my studying in office hours at my office, but I do. People don't know I get up early on Sunday morning. I mean, I'm ready to preach by Saturday night, but Sunday morning I get up and I spend another 2 hours looking at what I'm preaching, going through the verses, getting it set in my mind, going over how I want to put things. So people don't know there's a lot that goes into it. I
wanted to mention one other thing too about ministers. While you're having your happy Thanksgiving Day and you're having your happy Christmas Day with your family, a lot of times pastors get called out. Somebody gets arrested within the congregation, or somebody has a heart attack. I mean, there are different things that happen within that you don't get to spend the quality family time they are spending with their families.
And I think it balances out. I mean, one of the good things about ministry, it does give some flexibility. I'm a single staff pastor. I don't have a lot of people looking over my shoulder, and I don't have a lot of people to supervise. So I do have flexibility, but there are times where crisis happens and you do get called out. I've been called out for the death of someone in a car accident in the middle of the night. I've been called with a church member's son who's overdosed and passed away.
Oh, tough stuff.
You hear all of those things. The death of a child who's been struggling with leukemia. Pastor, can you come? So, I mean, those are things that my heart is in. I am here to serve even in those difficult times. But I don't know that people see that. And it's one of the things that congregations during October have an opportunity to show their appreciation for. I know I'm doing most of the talking, but I'm the pastor here. So let me maybe hit another one or two that are really good. We talked about that just now as far as his work knows no time or locational boundaries. So it could be middle of the night. It could be middle of the day. So in other words, be patient with him because he's going to be a lot of different places and you can't be everywhere at once. And there are times where the needs are multiple. And so be patient. Here's another one. This is a good one. He hears much more negative information than positive. And that's the truth. Pastors tend to hear the negative. So on the other side of that for the congregation, just be encouraging. A very simple word of encouragement. You have no idea how far that goes in the life of your pastor and his family, just to encourage them a little bit. Pastor, we appreciate you. Thank you for being where you are, being who you are. realizing he's not perfect, but this man and his family, they give their all for you. They've picked up their lives. They've moved. Kathy and I haven't lived nearby family in years. We haven't lived close to our children in years. They live in another state, another city. And so we live here, and we have to travel hours just to get to see our granddaughter. So there's a lot of sacrifice that needs some encouraging words. I don't know how I'm doing on time here.
You still have 10 minutes.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Let me choose a couple more here. Let's see. Let me just go down the list, hit a couple of these. He has chosen a highly leadership intensive call. So be leadable. I think that goes to, the pastor-deacon relationship, the pastor-church council, the pastor-church member. He is the leader. And too many times pastors are viewed as hired hands. We've hired you. You do a job. You're here to serve us. So therefore you can't lead us. And that's a real bad misconception in the church. Is that he's not the leader. He's the hireling. So be leadable. Let him lead you. And one of the things I'm learning is that if I follow God and I follow his lead, then people will follow that better. I don't make a lot of plans these days that I haven't heard from God about. And that's one of the things he's teaching us in our latter phase of life. This fourth quarter of ministry is let him make the plans and not me. And that way, I think people are more apt to follow when they see it's a God-given vision and not a pastor who had a good idea. All right. He's going to say some dumb things every now and then, so be forgiving.
Let me give you an example of one. So, this was a church my dad was pastoring, and he said, I think he said, Donna is, we've been married 17 years and Donna's 18. He got it mixed up. I was actually 17. They had been married 18 years. And man, I looked out in the congregation. He just got the number messed up. And so I looked out and people were going, oh.
Yeah.
Most of them, their daughters had to get married and stuff like that. I just laughed about it. I thought it was funny. So after church was over, the first thing Mother did said, no, Donna is 17. We've been married 18 years. So she had to get that straight with everybody. He didn't even know he said it. He said, I said that. And then he felt he needed to get up there the next Sunday and correct it.
Yeah.
I know I said something dumb because I can look at this lady right here. She's sitting on the front pew, and I can look at the facial expression and know I just said something really dumb. Something that maybe I should have kept. And I guess that's one of the things that people need to be aware. Forgive him for his faults. And understand that preaching is very fluid. Some guys will maybe read a manuscript. I don't. I have notes, and it's a very fluid thing that the Spirit leads you in. So guys, be careful. Preachers, be careful. Be Spirit-led. Be Spirit-filled. Let him anoint you for what you're saying, and be careful that your flesh doesn't get in the way. Maybe you won't say as many dumb things that way.
Just don't say your daughter's 18. We've all been married 17 years.
Well, Nathan was born one day after our anniversary. And so, sometimes that gets a little convoluted. He was born 5 years in one day after we were married, not just 1 year. So anyway, but he says some things. Here's another one for how people view the family. So the pastor's family is patient with you. So be patient with them. I think some people expect pastors' kids to be perfect. You can relate to that.
And we were not perfect.
No.
But I promise you, we were more boring than most of the other people's kids were.
Well, and look, a lot of preachers' kids can be pretty mean, but that's just because they play with the deacons' kids.
True.
There's one of those dumb things. But I've seen a lot of preachers' kids who are mischievous and into everything. I think they have some baggage too, because they're expected to be perfect, and I think they're ready to show the world sometimes. I don't have to.
I think so too.
So just
there are a number of singers out there, like rock stars. Just their dads were pastors of churches. There's one, I can't think of her name right now, but her dad was actually a pastor of church, and I'm talking like the women wore dresses all the time, no makeup and all that.
Yeah.
And so she's turned into like this huge rock star, just to go completely against them.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of rebellion in those kids. Let me give another couple before we run out of time. Here's another one. Your pastor is greatly encouraged by your faithfulness. So, people of God, just be there. Be there. Come to Sunday school. Come to preaching. I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of hangups that pastors have, and one of them is the attendance of the church. And you look at that as an estimate of your performance, and really it shouldn't be. But you think, well, do they not like my preaching? Do they not like me? I mean, our attendance is down. What is wrong with us? And that's on us. But still, it's just one of those human things that you look at your life and think, well, they're not here. So your pastor's greatly encouraged by your attendance. Be there every chance you can.
Yeah, but here's what I think happened during COVID, when people just got used to, like, I'm in my pajamas, I'm watching it on Facebook Live. And, and so that culture, we have that culture of people too.
Well, there's that culture, but then there's the calendar, there's the school calendar.
Okay, so it looks like their screen froze. I'm talking to Barry and Kathi Holcomb. They're with Home to Heart Ministry, and really good folks. So we're talking about pastor appreciation. And I was a PK. I was a preacher's kid. And as a matter of fact, Phil's a PK too. So we can both tell you what it was like to live in a minister's home. And it was pretty tough. I mean, there are labels that get put on you. The biggest thing I'd want to say is, again, like Barry was saying just a few minutes ago, is just plain old respect. Don't take anything for granted in a minister's life, because they're human just like everybody else is. They really are. There are divorces in ministers' families. I think a lot of it comes from pressure of maybe trying to please folks in the congregation. And if they can just be given the flexibility, I think that would be most helpful to them. You need to support them. On their wedding anniversary, send wedding anniversary cards. You don't do a text. Don't do that. Send a card. That would be awesome to do that. It shows that they're appreciated. And I think we need to do a whole lot more of that. Home to Heart Ministry. You need to go check them out. HomeToHeartMinistry.com is the webpage. You can also find them on, and yes, Barry said he wants to know if he needs to come back in. Yeah. Let me just hit him a quick yes. Sometimes that just happens. I've noticed it happens more when I have ministers on the show, or people who are just plain on speaking the truth. But yeah, being raised in a minister's family, wow. They go through a whole lot. I wanted to remind you, Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. There's a number of ways you can find us. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can also find us on Abundant TV, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Another way you can find us is thenewscasters.com. That's a podcast. And we're really excited to have that there as well. That's okay. I started talking. You may want to get some of this cut out when you look at it. No, not really. So I was talking about appreciation for pastors as well. So you have just about, I think, that happens. Less than 2 minutes left in this segment. How do you want to end it?
Okay, so let me just see if there's one more really that's a great one that we need to think about as far as the pastors. Here's a good one. Two good ones. He needs to hear that you prayed for him. Be interceding. I have so many people that say, Pastor, I pray for you every day. That's a great encouragement. Pastors need to know that they are lifted up to the throne of grace by their congregation. That will help the relationships tremendously. It's hard to pray for a man and not love him. It's hard to pray for his family and not love them and be patient with them. And then I guess the last one, here's the truth. He's just a regular guy. This is just a man. So be real with him. Let him be real. He is just a regular guy. I invite your pastor to go fishing with you. Ask him,
please do that.
Guys, take him on a golf outing. Ask him to go hunting. Take him to do some of those real guy things, because he's just one of the guys. One of the best things that a church ever did, and this was in the most difficult church I served, but the guys took me out on a dove hunt, actually a quail hunt, and I got to go along and march through the cow pasture and shoot quail and watch the dogs, and those are times that build that relationship, because your pastor is just a guy. He's just a regular guy who has needs for regular friendships. Include him. Be real.
110%. I agree with that. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's always a pleasure.
Always fun,
Donna.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you guys a little bit later, and we'll see you also with another awesome guest. Take care. We'll be back shortly. Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319 and let's think of the possibilities. The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took MyPillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Because of all of you, MyPillow 2.0 has been a huge success, and now we're bringing you our best-selling Go Anywhere MyPillows with the same temperature-regulating technology. Made with my patented adjustable fill and brand-new cooling fabric, they're truly the next generation of MyPillow. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save over 60% on our MyPillow 2.0 4-pack special. You'll get 2 MyPillows and 2 Go Anywhere MyPillows, regular $259.92, now only $99.98. King size just $10 more. This is a limited time offer, so please order now.
The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdy.lawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers.